Imagine a world that is driven and supported by volunteers. If you really take just a moment to let that sink in and actually put yourself feeling that, imagine a world so wonderful that the only thing we needed to support our needs in the community were volunteers. Nothing else. It's hard to imagine, isn't it? But do you believe it's possible? Should we give up on that thought and that goal? Isn't that why most of you are here? Is that we believe and we try and we struggle because this is the world that we truly want to live in. A volunteer-based world that meets our community needs. But what is? What is it? I get to work with so many nonprofit organizations. And how many of you really need more volunteers? Can I get you to raise your hand? How many of you are looking for, would love to have passionate and talented employees in your organization? Raise your hand. That's right, I see that. And everywhere I go, what I see is, even though we are so blessed here in Northwest Arkansas, I mean, the more we travel, the more we should realize how blessed we are. But even here in Northwest Arkansas, what I see, what I feel, what I hear is we don't have enough help. The needs greatly outweigh the volunteer support that we have. When I'm working with different organizations, you know what I see? I see the classic, and I don't even know if these numbers are accurate, but you guys have all heard about the 80-20, right? What I see is 20% or less doing well over 80%. Who has felt that? Who's seen it? That's right. That's right. So that's what is. But what could be? What could be? And that's what I'm here today to talk about, is a world that has plenty of passionate and talented volunteers. And what I want to do is get us thinking about how to capture, train, motivate those volunteers. Can you imagine a world where there's not a single cancer patient who doesn't get the treatment they need? More importantly, a world where there's not a single cancer patient that doesn't have a friend to go through the struggle with them. Can you imagine a world? I can. I think this is realistic where we live anymore. Where there's not a single elderly patient who dies alone. It is possible. I think we have the talent and passionate people here. It's our jobs here to go get it and to find it. Can you imagine a world where not a single child slips through the cracks? We can do that. But the contrast here is pretty great. So, how do we get there? What makes up the difference in these two gaps? This is me at Arkansas State University as a senior in college with an agriculture business degree that I'm about to finish up. I am motivated. I am driven. I have more energy than you can imagine. I know how to throw a party, too. I know that I want to go out and do great things, but I have no earthly idea what I need to do. here I am about to close the chapter of my undergraduate career, and I don't know what I need to do. But I have got all of the ingredients for a great recipe. But what do I do? I was very involved in the Student Government Association at Arkansas State. So involved that I worked my way up and I won the election to be the president of the Student Government Association. And then I took it to the next level. I got very involved and active in the administration and policies of the academic institution. And I started working with the administration of the college, and the presidents and the vice presidents. And then I started changing policies for students. Then I got into it so much that I started working with the legislature down in Little Rock. And I started implementing changes that affected our students, my fellow students at ASU. And you know what I thought? I thought maybe, just maybe, I wanted to be a politician. Thank you, Lord. The Lord had bigger plans for me. But I thought, you know what? Maybe I just should go to work for Arkansas State University. I loved it there. I knew everybody there. And so I walked into Dr. Les White. He was the chancellor, the top dog at Arkansas State University. And I said, Dr. White, I love ASU. I love this legislature business. I love working with you and all these students. I want you to hire me. And he said, you're hired. But he said, I think I see something bigger for you. He said, so I'm going to do you the best favor I could ever do you, and I'm not going to hire you. Instead, what he did is he picked up the phone. I didn't know who he was calling. And he called a gentleman named Wallace Fowler. Wallace Fowler, for some of you may know him or may not, a very, very successful businessman here in Arkansas. Very involved at the business level, the banking level, and the academic level here in our great state and many other states. Wallace Fowler, all I heard was, send him right over. So Dr. White says, you need to drive to Mr. Fowler's office now. And so I did. And I walked into Mr. Fowler's office the same day, and I sat down with him. I did not know Mr. Fowler, but Mr. Fowler, thank goodness, had listened to me give some speeches on the steps of the Chamber of Commerce. He said, I've heard you speak before. I heard you fight to keep the sales tax, to keep funding the students. And I told him my predicament. I'm motivated, I'm driven, I have all the ingredients. And what he said to me was quite visionary. He said something very simple. He said, what are you passionate about? And I remember telling him, I was blessed to know the answer. I really like advocating for these students. I've gotten into it. And I like advocating for people. I kind of feel like a protector. And then he asked me, he said, well, I already know what you're good at, but you need to tell me, what is your awesomeness? What are you very talented in? Something that separates you from others. And I was blessed at that point because of all the mentors in my life. I knew the answer. I think I'm really good at public speaking. And then he said, so all we have to do is determine the community need for you. And after we went through my passion some more, and after we went through my talent some more, what Mr. Fowler said to me is, in my world, I get sued all the time. That's what he said. What a backwards approach to why I'm a trial lawyer. In my world, Sachs, I get sued all the time. And because of that, I have my own team of lawyers, and I'm working with the lawyers that sue me all the time. And what I have seen, he said, just my observation, there are way too many lawyers in this world, but there aren't very many exceptional ones. And in my world, I have seen a need for someone who brings the first two to the table: passion and awesomeness. And he said, I recommend that you go to law school. And I did. And you know what? These three things have worked out. But you know what? I get paid to be a trial lawyer. It's really a different category than volunteerism. While I think a lot of the things that I apply with being a trial lawyer apply with our volunteerism in the community, it's quite the different analysis. Being a trial lawyer puts food on the table for my children. When I volunteer in the community, I don't see at least the exact same connection, right? When I'm a trial lawyer, at least I hope that we get paid. When I volunteer in the community, at least I don't see the direct connection. So we have to look at it from a different angle in order to find that volunteer that can change the world. Well, if we take a look at passions, if we start to study and examine this word that is talked about so much, right? I turned on the television this morning working out, and there was somebody talking about passion. I went to YouTube this morning and typed in passion, and hundreds, if not thousands, of clips showed up. I got on just regular Google and I typed in passion, and Oprah pops up and defines passion. Passion is almost talked about too much, isn't it? But what we have to really dive into, if we're going to uncover your passion or my passion, is we have to fight the resistance. What do I mean by that? Fight the resistance. To really study you and put yourself out there to determine what is such a strong and barely controllable emotion inside you, it requires vulnerability. Did you know it's okay to be vulnerable? It requires maybe that we cry together. It requires that we may sit down in a room of our friends and that we workshop, that we discuss, that we put our feelings on the table for people to see. But what I have found, even more so in the world that I live in, a male trial lawyer, you're putting yourself up there to get shot at. You're putting up there in a world of major resistance, where you're almost made fun of. Or if someone thought I was vulnerable, would they pay my clients less? And what I have found is that society, the more I put myself out there, or the more you might put yourself out there, society starts shooting darts at it. That's the resistance. But we have to push through those obstacles. We have to push through those struggles to truly do an analysis of what drives you. What is it inside of you that makes the difference? Because Gabe was in here working when I walked in to make sure that we had audio. And I have an audio clip that I have played in this presentation before. And I was watching that audio clip today, and it was Steve Jobs talking about his passion for the iPhone. It was Michael Jordan talking about his passion for basketball. And there was Jon Stewart involved, and there were others, and Einstein popped up in this video. It was a very powerful video. But I started examining, how do I feel watching all of this agenda about passion out there? Someone's selling something to me. That's how I felt. And I watched the next passion video, and oh my gosh, this is awesome. My heart's beating. I'm like, why don't I jog like these people? Whoa. And then at the end, it's a Nike commercial. Once again, passion is being sold to me. And so I chose not to bring that in here to you, because I'm not interested in whether or not you feel Steve Jobs' passions. I'm not interested in whether or not you are passionate about basketball like Michael Jordan. No, instead, the difficult question that so many of us run from is, what am I truly passionate about? The analysis that we have to stop, clear out the clutter in our life, slow down, turn off the email, turn off the iPhone, shut the door, and do a self-analysis and penetrate and tell stories about ourselves and think to emotions where we cry, even alone or with other people, to really determine what drives you. Now, how do we do that? Well, setting aside working out, how many of us have measured our heart rate? How many of us have actually done a study of, when our heart rate goes up, what are we doing other than working out? If we journaled that, if we paid attention to ourselves, what you would find is that your body will physically, literally tell you what you are passionate about and what you are not passionate about. But we have to listen to ourselves. And the only way to do this is to take the subconscious and make it conscious. And that's where we're not making that difficult jump, is that we have to physically almost do it to ourselves, because subconsciously we're doing it all the time. So let's take the subconscious to the conscious, and you take a look at what gets your blood boiling. I bet that's what you're passionate about. And write it down. But wait a minute. What's something else that we can do that can study you? How fast do you get out of the bed in the mornings? Sometimes when I say it, it's way too close to home. But what I have found in monitoring myself is that when I jump out of bed, when I can't get ready fast enough, when the belt just slides right on, what am I going to do? Write it down. Because you just told yourself, this is something that gets my blood pumping. This is something that moves me like other things don't move me. It's something I must be so passionate about that my body just does it without me having to tell my body to do it. But the only way we can capture the greatness that ourselves are telling ourselves is to workshop it. Bring the subconscious to the conscious. Now, vice versa, if you can't get out of bed, assuming you didn't stay out and drink all night the night before, if you can't get out of bed, or you're dreading getting out of bed, what is it that you're about to go do? And write that down as, highly likely you're not passionate about it. My time. A dentist friend of mine started talking to me about looking at not just time, but looking at time as my time. There's my time, there's your time. But if we study where we naturally start spending my time, your time, if we looked up a week later and we journaled it, I spent this much time in the evenings doing X, this much time in the evenings doing Y. That's what we likely, naturally gravitate to as far as what we're passionate about. Versus going back and forth. What is it that we know we need to accomplish? Right now, on my office desk is a Post-it note with a list of things on it. What is it that I have put off for 3 weeks? We need to pay attention to these things to really uncover what our niche is in our community. Because if we don't know what we are truly passionate about, then we're not in our niche. And if we're not in our niche, and we're the leaders of this new world, then how are we going to recruit the masses? How are we going to convert those who don't know their passions, to show them the way to find what gets their blood pumping? We've got to know. This morning when I was working out, a close friend of mine, Brian Adams, was on the bicycle there beside me, and I said, "Brian, what are you passionate about?" He goes, "Whoa! Whoa! That's way too early." And then he gives me one of these things. Well, here goes Sachs again. What's going on? I'm saying, no, I want to know. You know what happened? It took me 3 questions. I had to ask him 3 times. He started spilling his guts to me, telling me all the things he's very passionate about. And I said, "When's the last time somebody asked you that question?" You couldn't remember ever. Ever. How many people in our community right now, they may be in the naysayer group, they may be in the I have never volunteered group, they may be the ones shooting at you when you put your vulnerable passions on the table. But if we took the time to ask them, "Hey, what are you passionate about?" Come on. Really, I want to know. What are you passionate about? Please, I'm not kidding you. Tell me. What are you passionate about? Would we not bring them on the bus with us? It's possible. It's possible. So, if you could pay the best fly in town to be on the wall and watch you and write all this down, I bet that fly that we paid would be able to tell you at the end of either a couple weeks or a month what you're passionate about. Unfortunately, I've not found that fly that will take my money. And that responsibility is falling on one person's shoulders. That's me. And for you, it is you. Take the time to do the self-analysis. Okay. What's the second thing? Our talents, right? Can you stand up for me? This group, the type of group that will do corny stuff. This is the type of group that will do the corny stuff. Yeah, exactly. Fundraising. Put your hands out just like this. This right here is what they call an asking body language. Now, repeat after me. $5 bid.
$5 bid.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Will you give me 10?
Will you give me 10?
$5 bid.
$5 bid.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Now 10.
Will you give me 10?
Will you give me 10?
Woo! somebody bid?
Woo!
Now 20.
Now 20.
Now 20.
Now 20.
Will you give me 20?
Will you give me 20?
So.
So.
Wait a minute. So.
So.
$10 just raised for a great organization. Right? All right, you can sit down, but here's something that just was proven to me. Because I turned down so many organizations in Northwest Arkansas to do their charity auction. I mean, it hurts even. Kim can tell you, I really don't know how many organizations we're having to turn down. And the question that we get back from the organization who calls us and says, will you help us with our live auction, is Sachs, who do you recommend to do this? Dick Trammell kind of handed the torch over to me as one of my great mentors and got me started in this. And who else can you get to do this? And there are some. But I looked up the population on the Northwest Arkansas Business Council of our great little NWA. 492,000 people. And we're having a hard time finding somebody with the passion and talent to do a simple live auction. That should never be the problem again, now that I've watched all of you do it. Yeah? That should never happen again here at all. Several years ago, Gabe was talking about this, but I was having success as a trial attorney, young trial lawyer. I've been doing it for 3 years. I'm 35 years old now, and so I started practicing law at the age of 26. And so I looked up 3 years later, and things are going well for the practice. Making the money, right? And we had this national trial lawyer come into town, and we were sitting at dinner with him down here at James at the Mill. And I was telling him about our successes in the courtroom. And I was telling him, and that jury returned every single penny that I asked them to return. And it was awesome. And after he heard several stories about me talking about how great I am, this lawyer said to me, what are you doing with the same talent you just talked to me about to give back to the community? And I remember it was just like a punch in the face, because I really had not been doing anything at all. And that punch kind of opened up the door for opportunity for me. I was giving a presentation to the Rogersville Chamber of Commerce on how to use focus groups to improve your bottom line in your business. And when I got done, this is going to be, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, time's getting away from me. A young lady named Heather Keenan, right? Keenan. Heather Keenan. Heather came up to me and Heather said, we have a fundraiser coming up for helping oncology patients excel. And we need an auctioneer. And I just heard you give this speech, and I am just sure that you can do this. And I'd like for you, I'm asking you if you'd be our auctioneer. And I had the good sense about me to ask, well, when is this event? And she said, well, it's this Friday. This was a Wednesday, 2 days from now, 3 days, whatever. And I'm like, okay, red flag number 1. And then I had the good sense about me to ask, well, where is your current auctioneer? Why is the situation happening? And she told me that Dick Trammell had been doing that for many, many years. And however, his wife was battling cancer at the time, and she was toward the end of her battle. And he wanted to be with her, and he said, even though I told you I could be there, I just can't be there. Well, I have to say yes, right? I have to say yes. Thank goodness that I did. I said yes to that opportunity. And I went home because my experiencing at that point with auctioneering was I grew up in the cattle sales. I was born on a cattle farm. I have a cattle farm now. I've been to lots of cattle auctions. And so my experience up to that point was, going around with my buddies, maybe smoking a cigarette, pretending to be an auctioneer at age 7. So what does anybody do when they have a challenge in front of them? They Google it, right? So I Googled charity auctioneer, and I watched some YouTube videos of some charity auctioneers out there. And so we did the auction for Hope, and it was a success. And they told me how much money they wanted to raise, and we raised more. And then, who was in the crowd? Circle of Life Hospice. Circle of Life Hospice, the Voyage was their event. And they asked me would I do theirs as well. And I remember, saying yes. And we raised $41,000 for Circle of Life Hospice, and we set a new record for them. We sold a Harley Davidson that night, I remember. Who was in the crowd? Tina Wagner of the Cancer Challenge. And she says, hey, we've got one of the biggest events in Northwest Arkansas. Will you do the Cancer Challenge? And so by myself, I did that auction, and it went pretty good. And the ball started rolling, and K-Life and Pathfinders and other organizations started asking me to do their charity events. And after about a year, maybe 2 years ago, I realized I am being asked and I'm agreeing to do this auctioneering, and I don't have a clue what I'm doing. I just have no idea. I have just been winging this in front of thousands of people, just Googling it. And I thought that's not fair to the cancer patient. That's not fair. Because when you're so ignorant, you don't know how much money you're leaving on the table, that's a problem. So, I went to auctioneering school. And I went down to Dallas, Texas. I researched the top auctioneering school in the country. I found Mike Jones, the leading instructor, and I went down there. And as I'm driving to auctioneering school, I had on my jeans. I had no blazers. I had on my George Strait button-up shirt. And I'm thinking, this is going to be a getaway. No practice of law for 3 weeks. Yeah? And I get down there and I walk in, and there's 45 auctioneering students and the instructor, and they're all in suits and ties. And then what happened is I realized that we worked 10 and 14-hour days throughout this auctioneering school. And I was just blown away by how much I was learning. But after 3 days, Mike Jones, the instructor, came up to me and goes, I hear you're a lawyer. You sure don't dress like one. So I went to Dillard's down in Texas and I bought a blazer to finish that I wore every single day for the rest of auctioneering school. But I got back. And the first thing I did is I started recruiting volunteers to join our auction team. Because I realized that the biggest mistake that I had been making was trying to do these auctions by myself from the stage. And the second, no offense to your organizations, mistake I was doing was asking board members of your organizations to try to be bid spotters. That was a huge mistake. So we started recruiting people with the passion, to recruiting people with the talents, and we started training them on how to be professional bid spotters. Simple things, but when done accurately, I now know how much money I've left on the table. What happened? We saw our results skyrocket. Unbelievable. We saw the momentum in the live auction and the fun people were having while giving skyrocket. And now we look up and we've raised about $1.5 million, haven't we, Kim, for charities right here in Northwest Arkansas. But we have to do an analysis, don't we, on what is our awesomeness. What is our awesomeness? I asked folks this question: what are you truly amazing at? And I'm always surprised at the struggle answer this question. Originally, when I started asking this question of people, I would be critical of the individual I was asking it of. I would be critical of them for not knowing what they're awesome at, what their skill sets are. As I have matured, and I've been through life experiences myself, I'm less critical of the individual and more critical of society. And it's because, and that's why I put on here, it's okay to be awesome. Remember how vulnerable we are when we put our passions on the table? Did you know that when we're awesome at something, you're the first person that somebody wants to shoot at? The very first one. Is that jealousy? Is that bitterness? That's more time than we have allocated for today. But I can tell you that awesomeness comes with resistance. The key is will you push through the obstacle? I could sit down with each one of you, I am certain, and an hour later, we could determine what you are the most special person in the world at. I'm confident in it. We could determine how awesome you are at least one thing, highly likely 3 or 4. That's not the struggle. The struggle is, what will you do when people start shooting at you for showing the world, doing great things with your awesomeness? That's the struggle that you have to push through. You know, believe it or not, when I started doing this auctioneering, I received major resistance from my own profession. Did you know that a cowboy lawyer on a stage, hooting and hollering, that's not what lawyers are supposed to do? No. Lawyers are supposed to all look the same. Put the same amount of gel in their hair. Have your part in the right spot. Wear glasses even if you don't need them. And you're supposed to walk a certain way, act a certain way, and you need a mahogany desk if you really want to fit in. So I started seeing resistance from my own profession. Guess what else? I started getting resistance because I was so involved raising money for organizations that were either the organization that we were either suing or organizations who were affiliated with the organization that we were suing. And then I started getting resistance for being so involved in the Chamber of Commerce through this fundraising from my own profession. Do we stop? Do we fit the mold? Do we overcome the obstacles? Do we keep being awesome despite all those things? I hope so. I hope so. But I will tell you that I have sat in my living room many times, looked at my wife and said, maybe it's easier if we just stop this. Maybe it would be just easier if I just came home each evening and we didn't do this on the weekends. Maybe that would be easier. Now, did you know something else I've hit resistance with? I've hit resistance from the very charitable organizations that I've raised money for. Is that natural? Yeah, it may be natural. Do I need to hold grudges and hold it against them? Absolutely not. But I know of 3 different charitable organizations that because I'm a trial lawyer, even after I had raised them tens of thousands of dollars, they told me that I would never do this again. Fortunately, we've been able to overcome that with many of the organizations. But there was a particular board member of an institution here in Northwest Arkansas who was connected, who called me up one day, and he said, "You're suing so-and-so." I was representing a lady, 39 years old, who was paralyzed from the sternum down. Never walk again. And And he said, I'm going to make sure that you don't ever do any more auctions again. Boy, was he wrong. But I remember thinking, maybe it's just easier to go back to being a trial lawyer. Maybe that's easier. But do we stop? Do we keep pushing? So what I found is that finding our awesomeness, while difficult, it's far from the challenge. It is continuing to be awesome. So when I talked about maturity, and I used to be critical, right? I used to be critical of those who didn't know what they're awesome at. And now I realize that no, it's the battle against society. I used to be critical of those who caused me this resistance. And I was bitter. But what I realize now is the one who asked me or resistant to my awesomeness, you know what I should do? I should say, what are you awesome at? Let's be awesome together. And I'm shocked by how often that's working. I'm just totally shell-shocked. The very individuals and entities where I've had resistance, today, we're back together. And we are sharing each other's awesomeness. That's because both entities had the power, the ability, the confidence, and the drive to step up. That's what I'd ask of you to be thinking about. And that's what the 3-point solution is really about, is uncovering others' passions, others' awesomeness, and bringing it together for their community niche. So, you have a worksheet in front of you. I'd ask that you start writing down your passions. I'd ask that you start writing down your talents. It's because as you start to write down, it's a process. It forces you to look at yourself and think about it. Does anybody want to share a passion of theirs? I'll write it on the board. Something you're passionate about. Buffalo River. Passion. This is all we've got to do. But when's the last time we wrote it down? What's another passion? Anybody else? Something we're passionate about.
Children.
Children. One more. One more passion.
Advocacy.
Advocacy? All right. What about talent? Remember, it's okay to be awesome. I stood up in New Orleans 2 weeks ago, because I'm down there to teach on how to get depositions. And I said, I'm really good at taking depositions in lawsuits. And somebody said, and very humble too. And I said, if I wasn't awesome, would you want me teaching you? Right? Hey, what's a talent? Somebody tell me something they're awesome at.
Writing.
Writing. You're a great example because I'm awful at it. We can combine our awesomeness. Okay? What's something else that you're awesome at? Go ahead. I want to hear it.
Building relationships.
Building relationships. One more. One more awesomeness.
Strategic planning.
Now, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on the community need, because I would hope that's what y'all know here. Here, in a simple process, that you can do this with your organization, with your employees, with your family, and walk through the 3-point solution to find your niche. What's the niche? Well, I'll just use myself here as an example. Here's I think you've said they've been up there long enough, you've probably seen these, but here's some things that I'm very passionate about. Hey, I have more passion than I have talent. So, here's some things that I have talent in. Cowboy. I went to college on a rodeo scholarship. Auctioneering, public speaking, teaching. Write down some things you're good at. What are some community needs? You have to write these things down. If you don't know what the needs are in the community, You can, one, contact a charitable organization that fits one of your passions and ask them, what are your needs? You can, if you go to church, which I hope you do, you can go to church and ask your preacher, what is a community need? You can go down to the Chamber of Commerce and ask what a community need. And if you're desperate, you can email me and I'll tell you. But here are some, what I have found some community needs are that kind of fit into my world. Special needs rodeo with the special needs children. Pie auctions for mission trips and etc. Churches. Cancer challenge, hope, speech competition, sunshine school. And I think we have a need for passionate, skilled volunteers. So where your niche is only where all three line up. This is the part where when you're doing this process, if you're filling out your passions, you're filling out your needs, you write down your talents, you write down the community needs, where all three line up, it should be an awesome moment for you. Now, isn't this amazing? Isn't this beautiful? Yeah? This is my niche. This is where I need to live, breathe, dedicate my time, and all the resources is where all three line up. And so for me, patient advocacy, that's somebody else's, auctioneering, cancer challenge, Hope Cancer Resources, children and horses, cowboy, special needs rodeo. My main man Chuckles, that's my horse. He's wonderful with children. My wife is starting to use him with hippotherapy. Education, public speaking, speech competitions. I'm a product. My mother's a school teacher. I have been competing in public speaking events since whatever age she made me start doing it. And then I went to the local high school in Bentonville, and I was sitting down with the kids in their forensics class, and I asked them, I said, hey, tell me about these speech competitions that you're doing. And, they said, we like doing these speech competitions, but these debate tournaments, but it's kind of all the same people there all the time, and it's only our teachers that get to see us, and they give us this little trophies. There's no cash. So we started doing the Bailey and Oliver High School Speech Competition, where we bring in community leaders. Cindy's done it for us. We bring in community leaders, leaders in the community to be their judges, and we give them cash. So, and then I think that improving our community is something that everyone in this room is passionate about. It's something that's become a part of my life. Teaching and finding passionate, skilled volunteers. I think that, and I believe that if you take the time and you do this process yourself, you will know, no doubt about it, what your niche is in the community. You know what else you're going to know? What you need to be saying no to in the community. Because that's what I see happening to this group. You say yes too often. I call it the say yes factor. You've got to learn to say no. This three-point solution is what has given me the power to say no. It's given me the knowledge. That's not my niche. I'm not good at that. I hate to say it, I'm not passionate about your cause. We have to live honest with people so that we do great things. But if you are in your niche, what's going to happen? Your heart rate will go up. You will roll out of bed to get there. It'll be considered my time, your time, and you will deliver a great product that will change people's lives. It'll be an impact that you can see, you can feel, and it'll motivate you, and people around you will start to come to you because they want to be a part of this process. They want to join it. Now, once we have reached this point, what is our duty if we want the world that's driven and supported by volunteers? It's to go out and get more. It's to apply the three-point solution to our neighbor, to our friends. When a volunteer walks into your organization and says, I'll use cancer as an example. My mother died of cancer last year. I now want to help your organization. Here's where we've got to make the change. The organization can't say, well, we need help with this. Why don't you go do that? And wonder why 3 weeks later, they're no longer coming in. What we have to do when somebody walks into our door or comes across our life and says, I don't know what I need to do, but I think I like you. I think I like your organization, and I want to volunteer. If we want that person to do wonderful things, make a change where people in need no longer have those needs, we have to plug them in to this system. We have to do an analysis with them. Take them to dinner. Take them out for a drink. Sit them down with other volunteers and do a workshop. Because if we can plug them into our organization where they fit, not where we need them to fit, that's when great things are going to happen. So, we went from imagining a world, let's live in the world. Let's live in that world driven and supported by passionate and talented volunteers. A world where one volunteer turns into a team. A team of volunteers turns into a great organization. A great organization teamed up with others reaches a community where the needs literally start to vanish. That's what we want. The future is not a place that we just get to go. The future is the place that we get to create. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Okay, you have an evaluation form on your page. Please fill it out.